Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Insights from a Headhunter LinkedIn live show with today's guest, Jeff Young from Ohio, Columbus, Ohio, US. Very, very welcome, Jeff.
Namaste, Tina. Thank you so much. I've been looking forward to this. This is going to be a lot of fun, I think.
Yes, me too. And when I was thinking about the topic LinkedIn etiquette, the first person who came to my mind was you, because you are really showing with the example how to be a nice and kind person on LinkedIn with your experience in the corporate world, having worked in the big four consultancies. I'm really, really happy to have you here on this show.
Wow. Thank you. I appreciate you thinking of me. I really like having that reputation as being a nice person, and it's really honestly I, one of the catchphrases for the organization that I worked for, Ernst and Young, was "We take business personally." And I think that's a great attitude to have. It's about other people. So I think that's really the best approach that you can have.
So when it comes to etiquette on LinkedIn, and I often talk about the perspective from job seekers or people who are thinking about career change, but also about people who are not thinking about career change, because sometimes things happen in our careers, even if we have the best results, personal results, we have reached our KPIs, and suddenly there is a reorganization. So we can all use LinkedIn as career insurance and be proactive.
Oh yeah. I mean, LinkedIn is absolutely, in my opinion, one of the best networking tools on the planet. LinkedIn was my lifeline during COVID because I couldn't network with people face to face. So that's part of the reason that you and I met, is because I started to go a lot more global in my connections, and I think in terms of the I like your focus on job seekers. I like to focus on job seekers as well. I volunteer my time with a couple of local job seeker organizations here in Columbus, Ohio. And a lot of what I say applies to not only a job seeker, but anyone else as far as
Anyone.
across LinkedIn is concerned as well. So from that standpoint, building your brand, being a person, why wouldn't you want your brand to be a person who's a nice person, who is a person who helps other people? That piece of etiquette is just, I think, the most appropriate thing you could ever do, because people are going to find that it really, I think, more than anything else, the phrase we always hear is know, like, and trust. So I
Yeah.
think being that kind of person actually takes you through that know, like, and trust cycle a whole lot faster than you would if you were just all stuffy and et cetera. So being a person and being a professional are not two mutually exclusive things.
Yeah. So when it comes to networking and also for job seekers, I know what's the bad etiquette, because I see it daily. People reaching out to me in their first conversation, um, almost saying, "Give me a job," and throwing their CV at me. What would you say would be a best practice
That
instead?
the best practice, well, for me, is you're absolutely right. I feel so, well, not sorry, but I feel for recruiters, because I see it happen. I've seen it happen so many times where someone actually does, put that out there, and the first words out of their mouth is, "Can you help me find a job?" And the answer has to be not yet, because I don't know you well enough. Okay. So again, it's back to getting to know that person and helping that person. So from that standpoint, helping the recruiter, helping anyone that you reach out to in the beginning, one of the best pieces of etiquette that I can tell people is to actually look at the person on LinkedIn, or find someone you already know that knows them and get information about them before you actually reach out to them. That way, when you're putting out a message to those folks, you're saying, someone else actually sent me. Okay, and that's a good idea too. Mentioning someone else's name that they already know is a great idea. That's a good piece of etiquette. But also, one of the things that is always been there, but nobody really ever does it, is that they ought to actually go to the person's profile and read their about section. What would be wrong with actually finding out what they thought was important about themselves? And in addition to that, there's the contact information, which will actually tell you a little bit more about the person, about how long they've been on LinkedIn. There's also the more about this profile, which also tells you some background information. So that's all fairly new on LinkedIn. But those are resources that, first of all, the about section, almost nobody ever reads my about section. I'll tell you why I can tell. Okay, because if they actually were to read my about section, they wouldn't send me a generic message in the first place. They would send me a DM. Okay, because I've got a special version of LinkedIn, but I've got a special premium association on LinkedIn that allows me to have what's called an open profile.
Yeah.
And open profile allows me to get a direct message from anyone on the planet. Anyone who is LinkedIn can send me a direct message without being connected to me.
Exactly.
That's a part of my etiquette, because my intent is to try to help as many people as possible. So that's how I open myself up to be able to do that. Now, of course, another piece of bad etiquette is sometimes somebody will send me a DM, and that DM is like, "Hi, want to buy a watch?" Okay, selling on the first message is also a piece of bad practice, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. I think it was a really, really good example, what you said. It's not about you, it's about the other person. And it happens so seldom that people reach out to me and say, like you said about the introduction. I had this recruiter from the US sending me a CV of somebody here in Europe. And of course, I looked like with totally different eyes, like, and this person was working together with the other person. But still, if somebody comes and recommends you, even if it's in the DMs, it's really really interesting. So that's not what everyone else is doing.
No, and it does differentiate you, because you're actually proving that you're thinking about the other person right off the bat, right? We talked about this a little bit in the pre-show. There are the three aspects that I talk about in terms of overall approach to LinkedIn, and I call them everybody knows I love 3 C's: coffee, conversation, and occasionally chocolate, of course. So for anyone who doesn't know me now, you do know. But I also talk about LinkedIn from 3 perspectives: profile, people, and participate. Okay. And when it comes to profile, honestly, I think the best thing that you can do from an etiquette standpoint on your own profile is not make it so much about you. Okay. Don't sound like you're tuning up for an opera. Me. Okay. That doesn't make any sense. Okay. Make it about the other person. Make it about your audience. Make it about the person that you want to attract to your profile in the first place. And that goes through every single section of your profile, every single thing you do on your profile. I mean, etiquette-wise, for example, it's actually a good idea for you to actually have a nice picture of yourself looking at the camera, smiling. Okay. Oh, and by the way, it's probably a bad piece of etiquette if you actually have cropped this out of a party picture that you look like you're a little drunk and there's this ghost hand on your shoulder. I'm sorry, I look at those kind of pictures and I go, you just don't get it, do you? It's really sad. And then from a people standpoint, of course, everybody, I know that there are people out there that don't care about this, but from the people perspective, if you don't send a personalized message, I think you're cutting yourself off at the knees, because that's a much better chance of you actually getting through to the person and getting a response from the person, as if you sent them a generic message or generic request to connect. So it just makes more sense to me to do it that way as well. And then from the participate standpoint, Let's stay with people for just a second. One of the other things that I think is an absolute wonderful use of LinkedIn is to take two people and introduce those two people, like you just did for me today. Okay, Elsa. Okay, Elsa and I are connected now because of you. Okay, we just connected this morning. Yeah, exactly. And you know why I connected with her? Because you're connected with her, and two other people that you and I love dearly are connected with her already as well. It was a no-brainer for me. I have never talked with her before, but I was willing to connect with her because you introduced her to me. And you didn't do it as an introduction. You just asked in a comment somewhere, "Are you two connected?" And I said, "Nope, don't think so." So I went and looked. And after I looked at her, that started the process. Okay, so now we've DM'd 3 or 4 times already and had a joke together, this morning, etc. So we're starting to get to know one another. That's perfect. Now, from the standpoint of the third P, okay, profile people and participate, I think the third P is extremely important because that's where you spend most of your time participating on LinkedIn. So from a participation about content standpoint, I think your content should also not be about you as such, okay? This is kind of a personal pet peeve of mine, but if every single one, 10 out of 10 posts shows you doing this as a selfie, I get tired of that really quickly. Okay? And again, this is just a personal preference. I'm uncomfortable doing selfies myself personally. Okay, so
yes, I heard it on Annette's podcast. What
yeah.
would you prefer to do with a selfie stick?
Yeah, my comment was I'd rather beat myself with a selfie stick than take a picture with it. Yeah, that's exactly right. I just don't go there. Okay, you'd have to go a long way back in my profile posts to see a picture of me in the first place. Yeah, sometimes you see a picture of me. It might be a picture of me, disrobing and doing something like this. What's your superpower? Okay, but and it might actually be a picture of a Superman. But normally it's not going to be a picture of me. And even if it's a picture of me, it's not a selfie. It's a picture someone else has taken of me. Okay, so it's you can tell. I mean, because obviously selfies are always like this. There's always I don't know why that's always has to be that way, but it does. So at any rate, that's one thing that I would tell you that that's something that I would not do from a participation standpoint, from the content standpoint. I make the content about other people. It's why I created. Honestly, it's why I created my second. You see my first hashtag, the LinkedIn Guru. It's why I created that second hashtag, Guru Good News, because that allows me to share something about all kinds of other people as well. So it's just easier for me to do it that way. And the other thing I think from an etiquette participation standpoint is you probably are doing yourself a really good service if you are referring other people to your audience as well. Okay, so over the weekend, I mentioned this to you before. I did a 3-hour seminar over the weekend for some folks in California, a Zoom seminar, a lot like this. But the Zoom seminar, when questions came to me, it was called a Stump the Guru session. I love doing Stump the Guru sessions, okay, because I get to answer all kinds of questions. But when questions came to me about, okay, how do I know and how do I keep up with new features on LinkedIn? Guess who I sent them to? I sent them to our buddy, Kevin B. Turner in Dallas, Texas, because he's the best I've ever seen at it, okay? When it came to how to do a profile video, guess who I sent him to? Our second buddy, Jillian Whitney, because Jillian Whitney is the easy peasy video queen. They're better at it than I am. Why wouldn't I want to give somebody who's better at it than I am? It's the same thing when somebody wants to know, from teaching standpoint, when somebody wants to know about Sales Navigator, I'm not your guy. I'm going to refer you to somebody else. It happens all the time, several times a week, as a matter of fact. So let me shut up and we'll go from there.
Let me just take the comments and.
I see a lot of our friends out there.
Let me go back from the beginning. So we have our friend Nigel Cliff.
Nigel, this halo's for you.
Oh yes, the halo. We also have Judith. Hey, LinkedIn lovelies from sunny Manchester. Yes, it's really sunny here as well, Judith. We also have Marcia joining us
Washington,
from
D.C., U.S.
yes. And we
And
have Varsha here from India.
Yes.
So lovely.
Thank you for coming. There we go. I see two people. I see two nice people.
Love you
Speaking
both.
of nice
Yeah.
guys.
We love you too.
We can't let John get away without the hashtag relentlessly helpful. Again, he earns that hashtag every single day on LinkedIn. It's amazing to me. I don't know how he does it. Sometimes I don't think he sleeps.
So nice to have you here. And we have Craig joining us from Scotland. Oh,
yep. Craig is one of the, it was funny. We were just in a conversation in my group with Craig and John and you and I. And, one of the things that was talked about was the fact that you asked the question, I think, right? You said, how many men will actually say, oh, I love you. Okay.
But yes.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I love you, brother, or something.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I don't call Craig my brother from another mother for nothing. It's because I do love him as a brother. I've gotten to know him so well. And John, John was the first guy who started it because he said, love you, buddy. Okay. There's nothing wrong with that. That's being a nice person as long as it's true. If you're doing it in terms of just saying it because you mean it, how can you go wrong? You can't go wrong.
Yes, more that, because there is so much hating online. So share the love instead.
There it is. There's the guy I talked about.
And we have Kevin joining us.
Mr. LinkedIn New Feature.
Yes, talking about Kevin, we have here a question or an example. Like I said, mostly we will talk about job seekers, but there is another thing about etiquette that I wanted to draw attention to. So here is a post from Kevin. And a couple of people posted or shared his post in a closed private group. What would you say about that?
Well, the point that we talked about before, and the reason we're bringing this one up, is that they shared it in a private group, but they didn't give Kevin credit for it. Okay, and that's just bad. I'm sorry, that's bad form. Okay, it's worse if you obviously plagiarize it and don't bring it there. But if you share the information, then I always give credit where that information comes from. Okay, it just makes, well, okay, here's another good example of that, right? When I first started being the LinkedIn guru, I did not do this, and I did not say the word namaste. Okay, shout out to my very good friend Vatsala Shukla in India, because she found me. We got introduced. She sent me something that actually told me the meaning of the word namaste. And so I actually used that graphic of her with the meaning of namaste a lot. I'll put it in the comments. I'll try to remember to put it in the comments. But she told me what namaste really means. Namaste really means that the spirit, it's a traditional, obviously, Indian greeting, but the spirit in me honors and respects the spirit inside of you. Who wouldn't want that to be a part of their brand? Okay, so I picked it up. I made it my own because I also made an acronym out of it. I'm a big acronym person. Okay, but I also share that, and I give her credit for that every single time. Okay, so it makes the most sense.
Yes. So like in real life, if you are going to use somebody else's content, ideas, even in a business meeting, ask permission first, or give the source, because it's just good manners. So it's about etiquette. Like it's the same thing online and offline.
Yeah, I don't think you should be any different online or offline. I mean, if you've got a different persona online than you do offline, it's going to show up. Somebody's going to call you on it sooner or later, or they're not going to call you on it, and you're just not going to they're not paying attention to you because they don't like what they see, because there's a difference, right? So there really shouldn't be a difference. It really makes much more sense to give credit no matter where that credit is due.
And we have our friend
There she is.
Jillian joining us as well from Las Vegas. I love that. Not yet. What a great response.
I think that was something I said earlier.
Yes. And we have also Veronica joining us. Finding things in common is a great way to create a genuine connection. Conversation flows organically. I remember with Veronica talking about languages and translations. We just started talking like we would have met in person, not online.
Yeah, that's one of the amazing things that happens to me all the time, is that if I actually were to meet someone in person, I end up, hugging them on the first date, if you will. Okay. Well, I end up hugging them because of the fact that I'm a hugger. Okay. That's a part of what, and if you don't like being hugged, okay, well, then you better find somebody else to interact with. But I hug them on the first time that I ever meet them because of the fact that I feel like I already know them. I've been talking with them for ages. So why not? Again, I usually, oh, by the way, even then, okay, when I actually first meet them, the first words out of my mouth is, would you mind if I hugged you? I ask permission, just in case they're not a hugger, okay? Because I'm trying to make it about the other person as well.
And also, Susan is saying good morning, good afternoon.
And maybe even evening in terms of Varsha, for example.
Yes, the whole globe is here. So that's really, really nice. So I wanted to ask you a question. Let me go here. Like, what are the key things to remember about etiquette?
Well, I think in terms of what we talked about before, make it about the other person. There's a phrase that is a Native American phrase about walking a mile in the other person's moccasins. Okay. And I think that's a key to the process as well. Put yourself in the other person's place. If you're going to put something out there, would you be offended by it? Now, again, there are differences, but think about it in terms of a much broader perspective than just you. Get outside yourself, think about how it looks to the world, and then maybe it's okay. And by the way, it's okay to be yourself. Okay, I talked about that earlier as well. I mean, look, I may disrobe on a LinkedIn Live. That might turn some people off. I'm sorry. I really don't mean to offend anyone, but if that didn't make you smile, you're not my kind of person. So I am thinking about the kind of person that would like that kind of thing, would go, oh my gosh, he's an audacious old dude that doesn't know what he's doing. He's gone senile on us. He's getting crazy. He just disrobed. Yeah, that's really the part of it that makes more sense to me. Being yourself, being again cognizant of the other person. Make it you should never put anything out there that wouldn't be good for your team. Okay. By the way, team, there's another acronym. Okay.
Yes.
Together, everyone adds motivation. Okay. TEAM, together, everyone adds motivation. That's another thing that I think you should be a part of a team. And tribe. Okay. And people can look up my other stuff as far as tribe is concerned. Yeah, there's an acronym for tribe as well. I won't bore you with it. But the point being is that's a piece of it as well. Think about it from a team perspective.
That's exactly what I wanted to say. It's how to stay accountable. It's like having the team. Maybe sometimes you're not sure if you're doing the right thing. Then I know I could always ask you or Jillian or John Esperian or somebody in the tribe to before you do
get
something.
Get someone else's perspective. Absolutely. I think that's a good piece of etiquette that you should practice as well. and again, it gets easier as you go because you find what works and what doesn't work. Here's a piece of etiquette that bothers me a lot is that I see a lot of people out there, and maybe not so much job seekers, but they hear about this all the time. I get a lot of questions about the algorithm. How do I make the algorithm work? Should I? Okay, here's a piece of etiquette. For example, a lot of people do this. Some of my best friends do this, but I'm never going to do this because they will put out something and then they will comment on something and then will like their own comment. There's nothing wrong with that. That is feeding the algorithm, okay? But it's just steps over the line as far as I'm concerned. I am not going to like my own stuff. I'll let other people do that for me. Okay, so again, that makes more sense to me. That's just me. Okay, again, I'm not telling anybody to do it my way. I'm telling you to be comfortable with the way you do it. Okay, and as long as your peeps, as long as your tribe, as long as your team is comfortable with it, then you're probably okay. But at least be cognizant of the fact that someone might look at that and go, all he ever does is like his own stuff. Nobody else ever likes his stuff. That would make me so uncomfortable.
Yeah, so I think it's good to think about it, that we don't have to do everything alone. When you're looking for a job, let your network know in a nice way, in a personalized way, and before you need a job, feed the bank of good karma. That when your time comes, that people will be there looking for jobs for you, instead of you doing the job because they like you so much. And the person who reached out with recommending the other person, I looked at their profile as well, and that's a really unusual way to reach out. So it's a win-win for all of them.
Yep.
Or in this conversation,
you've got to say you're looking, otherwise nobody will know, right? And you should mention it to the people you already know so that they are then aware of it. And you know what? It's also human nature to, I found out that this person is looking for a job. Well, let's find out exactly what they're looking for, so maybe I can actually help them find it. Wouldn't that be an interesting concept, right? And so, for example, it's worked in my life a couple of different times. For example, I found a job in 2004 because of a lady that I met in 1995 who happened to be in Columbus, Ohio, teaching project management classes at an organization here. And she looked at a job description. And when she looked at that job description, she knew me well enough to go, oh my gosh, that job looks like Jeff Young. And so she sent it to me. And then when I looked at it, I went, oh my gosh, that job looks like Jeff Young. Okay, I couldn't pass it up. It ended up being my absolute ideal job. Okay, and it's only through networking that kind of stuff happened, and only through a long-term relationship that she ended up knowing me well enough to help me with that. It's wonderful, and it can happen every single day on LinkedIn. It can.
It happens all the time. So I think do something. Maybe it takes longer, but it's more efficient, and you stand out. So I see that it's almost time to close this conversation, but I look forward to having more conversations with you. And for everyone who is not connected with
it's a Tiina doodle.
Yes. So follow Jeff on LinkedIn, and Jeff has a great newsletter called Gazette. So follow and subscribe. Is there some final words that you would like to say?
Yes, there are two magic words. Thank you. Okay. Speaking of etiquette, never forget to tell people thank you. Because if you do that, they will realize that you cared enough to say so. Yeah, that some people care enough to send me chocolate from the United Kingdom. Okay, so believe me, that really, really made me understand that they thanked me for what I did. So That's another piece. Don't ever forget to use those, those magic words that your mother taught you. Please, and of course, thank you. Thank
Oh
you.
yes, and there is the virtual coffee that people can send you as well from other side of the world.
Oh, yes, of course.
So that's wonderful as well. So thank you everyone who joined us, all our friends. We will continue the conversation in the comments and see you soon. And I will put on the outro music.